G'day, guys, and welcome again to Comics to Movies and More. I am your host, Sean Keenan, with my co-host, Stephen, and we have an awesome show today. We're going to talk about Thor Ragnarok. We have a little announcement about XCT and something that's going on in the works with that. And we've also got Mark all the way from over in Scotland. So we're super excited to have them on. So let's get into it. I'll bring in Stephen and Mark. G'day, guys. How you going?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hey, Sean.
Good.
Hey, Mark. And I'm going to get it right. Mark from Aroha Comics. And man, we've been talking behind the scenes a little bit, and there's so much good stuff we want to cover. We're going to talk about a little bit of the Scottish industry, the UK industry, and New Zealand. So there's a lot to cover. So
and bait and switching.
And if we want to get into that, I think it'll be great. Look, but we'll start with the last Thor movie first, anyway. And what I'll do is usually we have about half an hour to talk about the Thor movie, but I think we've got so much material to cover that we want to cover with Mark. We might try to get it to within, say, 20 minutes. The first thing I actually want to talk about the Thor movie is a big what if. So you got to remember that Kenneth Branagh, if I get his name right, actually did the first Thor movie very Shakespearean. So you had the downfall of, Thor's pride, his downfall, the collapse of Loki, the brothers, the siblings. There was a lot of that really over the top themes that was involved in the first Thor movie. Now, actually, the story for Ragnarok is the most dark, depressing movie you can ever think about. So he loses his eye. He has to fight Hulk, his best friend. He finds out another sibling rivalry. He loses his dad. He loses his world, and only his people just survive. Imagine if this wasn't directed by the New Zealand director and was directed by a Shakespearean director. How dark would this movie be? Have you ever thought about that, Mark? If this was done, say, Lord of the Rings style, let's say Peter Jackson took this one. Can you just imagine how dark and amazing this could be?
I think you wouldn't have got that with this film. And the main reason is the path they took with Thor the Dark World. So Thor the Dark World did that. And Thor Ragnarok itself is about destruction and rebirth. Yeah. But a dark version of this, I think maybe a Guillermo Pacific Rim's director, Guillermo. Terrible. Yeah. He could have taken something like this and made it very dark and twisted. But I think what we ended up with Thor Dark World is it wasn't just about the story. There was more going on in the background. You're looking at from moving from Dark World to Ragnarok. You had something that didn't probably perform as well as they liked. Chris Hemsworth was a bit down in the dumps about the character, and he didn't have his heart in it. And then along comes Taika Waititi, and basically he was given a framework to present the film in, which you had to tick some boxes to get Thor to the end where Asgard was destroyed. But what he did is he followed the path that was laid out for him from the Marvel team. But he also gave all the actors the opportunity to actually express themselves and have a bit of fun on set. And it's not to say that there wasn't a full script done or anything, because they still filmed all the scenes and they still had the path laid that they needed to. But the opportunity to basically ad-lib and add a bit of humor to it just drove new life and energy into the whole film. So whilst it isn't an outright comedy, there's some bloody hilarious scenes there. It made Thor more likable. It made his universe and world more likable, and it actually made people probably more connected to him as a person. Especially the family issues that have always been there, those Shakespearean issues that Kenneth Branagh and all his Dutch angles. Every second shot was on an angle in that first Thor, which was super interesting. But as far as Ragnarok goes, that darkness is still there. But the the light and the humor that they gave to that film made it something else altogether. And I think that's what really connected with the audience, and something that was probably really needed for Thor as a character in that Marvel MCU.
Yeah, I absolutely loved this movie because it was so different to the previous two and took it in a totally different direction. But not once have I actually thought, oh, what would have it looked like if it was so dark? And I think the humor side of it actually didn't diminish what was happening to him, but it didn't make the movie like totally depressing to the point where you're like, oh, this is a struggle to watch, or this guy just can't catch a break or something like that. That humor broke up all of the stuff that was actually happening to him. So although Del Toro, I'm a huge fan of him, like Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, the original Pacific Rim. So I would I would have loved to have seen his take on Thor. Actually, I'd love to see his take on any sort of Marvel movie. I think that would be considerably exciting and something very different, especially if they're going to go down that horror type of genre with New Mutants. And
he's already done one. Blade 2.
Oh, Blade 2, that's right. And I'll tell you what, that is one of my favourite Blades. I don't know why that gets canned all the time. The original, I think, is great, but 2, I feel, is a better story type of thing. And 3, let's not talk about that. That's just bloody horrible. But yeah, no, I thought Thor Ragnarok, although I like each of the Thors individually, I think 2 is the weakest of the 3, but 1 I think was very done for Thor, because I'm like, how do you kind of make him relevant in this time and place? And also, how do you make fighting with a hammer look cool? And they did that really, really well. So, but it was good in this to see him fight different ways to kind of make him come into that, that power of himself, that, the hammer was just a tool the whole time along, that, he's not the god of hammers, he's the god of, thunder, and even though it was lightning, but let's not split hairs.
So as I understand it, what happened was Taika was asked to put together a show reel. So Kevin Feige had seen some of his films and he thought it was, they were interesting and different. And they I think in conjunction with Chris Hemsworth, I think Taika's name came up. And Taika put a show reel together featuring the Immigrant Song, the old Led Zeppelin song that just is, it's almost impossible. You have to ask Led Zeppelin for permission, and they very rarely give it out to actually be put in films. He used scenes from Flash Gordon, and I think he might have used scenes from the old 80s Master of the Universe and a couple of those old sword and sorcery films. And you saw that sort of energy from those old, and most of us, and I think Taika's only about a few years older than us, that energy from those 80s films, as rubbish as some of them were, there was a lot of really, a lot of color and passion and excitement. And then you splash in all the Kirby-centric stuff with Sakaar and all the imagery, and it just went up another level.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the colors. When I first saw the poster that we've got up now, I'm like, oh, this looks like that neon Technicolor Dreamcoat type of thing, and I wasn't too sure of it. But it worked. It worked so well, type of thing. The way they did the Trash City and all that type of stuff. I'm a huge fan of the Planet Hulk storyline, and this took parts of that. It was a little bit different, but it is one of my favorite Hulk storylines. Yes, there we go.
I told you I've got everything right hand.
I love that you've got it within arm's reach as well. So that's kind of cool. So
the what was really interesting too is I think. Oh, I've lost the thought. Not surprising. It's not surprising. I know it's late where you are. It's only 1 p.m. over here in Scotland. But what was interesting, I think, with Planet Hulk and Universal, you're never going to get a Hulk movie, unfortunately. Those old contracts that Marvel signed away their characters for in the late 90s, and Hulk sat with Universal. So I think there's still something in the background that says they cannot just do a Planet Hulk movie. So this is, for fans, possibly the best middle ground, best of both worlds, getting, the themes in general of Planet Hulk, but putting it into a Thor buddy. It was a buddy movie in the end.
Buddy movie.
Yeah.
Yep. So I can't tell whether you're shaking, you're agreeing, or what you're doing, Stephen, with your video this week.
Look, and I do apologize. My internet's absolute rubbish today. So,
and I'm in Scotland.
Yeah. You've missed the earlier streams when my internet was rubbish and I was dropping out every 5 minutes, and the only way to stop the dropouts was basically turn off video. So, but no, I definitely do agree. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. I was thinking in terms of it, like you said, Mark, it really did breathe new life into the character. He was so different back. He was very Shakespearean back then. It was, I am Odin's son, a lot of that. And he became more personable, and he became, and I think as well, like everybody knows here, Chris Hemsworth is Australian, and he never got to play that whole
Really?
we always will claim him, but he never got to play that whole larrikin, that that little bit irreverent, that high personality. Because in
have
Thor,
you seen Ghostbusters the remake, mate?
I have not.
He's the best bit. He's go watch it just to see Hemsworth. He's outstanding in it. Yeah,
he's very good in it. Yeah.
It's on the list, but not very high up the list. I'm actually working my way through Transformers now. If you really want to know, the Siege of Cybertron.
Well, the news on that is Shire's supposed to be coming back.
Oh, the news on Shire that the last thing I saw on him, he was going to be Iceman in the new
Iceman.
MCU.
Correct.
That's rubbish. Yep. I bet they're not even close to doing anything like that. And you're sure. And Fahey has a habit of picking people who are likable and he can work with. So he ain't in it. I'd put 100 Aussie dollars down right now, which is cheaper than 100 quid, that he won't be in it.
Yeah. Well, I did drop some bits of news that I'd heard about the Marvel Universe last week. I'm a big X-Men fan, so I've been kind of keeping up to track on this. But they're supposedly dropping in kind of like what they did with the Avengers in other movies. So dropping them in as background characters or small cameos and that type of stuff, rather than just having a full movie. And I think that's pretty good. Also with the X-Men, like, give them a reason for why they came together, kind of like what they did with the Avengers, rather than just starting them all out at a school and trying to kind of do that part type of thing. So I think this is a clever way to go if that's the way they're going. So and then there was a hint dropped that the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was this week or is next week, and they've done the hashtag Agents of S.W.O.R.D. On their final episode, so it'll be interesting. And supposedly Beast is going to be in that series, so they're going to be brought into the Marvel cinematic universe, where Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of like Daredevil, and that was the Marvel cinematic universe was mentioned in it, but none of those characters were mentioned in the Marvel universe. So if they do that, I'd be interested to see how that goes.
I think it's important. Okay, I can't see us.
I'm sorry. What about Channing Tatum as Gambit? Like, he's been angling for that and I know, Sean, you're a big Gambit fan. So what's your play on Channing?
Nah, that's not happening.
No,
he came out and said that it's not happening, unfortunately. So they had a very cool idea around it. It was going to be a heist movie rather than a superhero movie. So it was just going to have the powers, but with the transfer from Fox to to Disney and all that type of stuff. It sounds like they are going to introduce the characters individually. So I've said before that Rogue is going to be one of the villains in Captain Marvel 2. And that's how she's going to be introduced. So I wouldn't expect to see Gambit either in that or after that movie. So that's still quite some time away in that regards. But if you haven't seen it, I do see a couple of actors that must be like trying to vie for the roles, because there's this really good fan-made Rogue versus Gambit YouTube video that you can check out.
I've seen it.
So I'm a big Spartacus fan. So Alan Holman, she plays Rogue in that film clip. So check that out. I think it's a good idea of what Gambit could look like if you're going to do like an R-rated movie with Rogue and Gambit. Like that would be kind of really cool to see. But I as much as I wouldn't have mind seeing Channing have a go, I don't think that will ever happen.
I think it's important to take note that I think now that the X-Men are back with Marvel and Disney, it does need some breathing space. And now with Disney Plus and all these TV series coming on, there's room there to slowly grow elements or single characters there that might not warrant a movie. I mean, with all, I think the most exciting thing about Disney Plus is there could come a day where every one of your favorite X-Men could get a solo story, and it's not going to be on the big screen, but it is going to be on the screen. So I think that's really exciting. And they do need to distance themselves from Dark Phoenix and the rest. And with the, I think even just New Mutants could, I think, stand on its own and be part of the introduction of mutants into the MCU. The movie is stand on its own. They could take those characters if it's received well and have a sequel and keep growing with that. And that could be part of a sneaky way of bringing them into the MCU a wee bit. As you say, Rogue and Miss Marvel 2 makes a hell of a lot of sense. Things like, I heard stories like Omega Red being snuck into Black Widow, other characters just having small bits and pieces. But what I think is one of the most exciting things is Doctor Strange and Madness of the Multiverse, because there's a lot of theories around that, and a lot of now that they own the Fox universe, you could have two Quicksilvers. You could have Scarlet Witch discovering her abilities, who's supposed to be playing the number 2 to Strange in that movie. You could see them tapping into all the universes that Marvel, Disney, Fox all own now, and you could see Aaron Tyler. Is it Aaron Tyler? The two Petros, anyway. One from the X-Men universe and one from the Avengers universe. They could both turn up, and in the end, Wanda might just go and merge them into one person, and you might have a third actor play them and carry on like that. You never know. But
it opens possibilities. That's the main thing.
Correct, yeah.
And with the idea of them also bringing back some of the Netflix actors, so there is talks that they want to bring back John to play the Punisher again, that they're talking to Charlie about playing Daredevil and all of that. That would be a good idea to be out, even though they're really are in the universe, although they haven't been brought into the cinematic universe. They've referenced certain things that go on, but I don't know. I'm really excited to see where this goes, especially if the stuff that they produce is like The Mandalorian, where you practically got 10 short movies, type of thing, which is phenomenal. If they're able to do that with the X-Men or different characters or all that type of stuff, I'm super excited. And the one that I heard of was Wolverine being snuck into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So that would be interesting, doing a Weapon X program. Now, when I say snuck in, does that mean
it's already
file
there
that says Weapon X, or does that mean actually seeing him?
Well, he's Weapon 10, and Captain America is Weapon 1. It's the Weapon Plus program. So that's already in the first, in the Hulk with Ed Norton, when they go and muck around and take out the test tube to give to the Abomination. There's all those little seeds already there. They're not complete Muppets. They've been able to place things there that could pay off. And that's what most good storytellers do. You always plant these little bits of seeds that could pay off in the long run, or actually burst into something else completely different. So I think it's really good.
Because that's what I was saying. When I went back and watched the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, I didn't realize that they dropped the mention of the 10 rings actually in Iron Man 1. Now, this movie is like, Shang and the 10 rings is like, man, it's 10 years later or whatever, 12 years later, but they dropped that in the very first movie.
And going back to Ragnarok, the Infinity Gauntlet, Hela walks past, fake, because that's in Thor 1 in the in Odin's chamber. So they've tied all these things up quite smartly.
Yeah, and it's good because they've been able to use that as a joke in one scene or tied in later. And I think that's what's great about comics as well, is that you can have something in a panel that means like nothing at the moment, but then when you get 5 or 6 issues down the path, people are like, oh, did you go back to 1 and see that there was this in and that? And I always love that type of stuff with comics as well. So
well, rereading Hickman's stuff at the moment, he laces all these tiny little seeds. His old Avengers runs, his Secret Warriors run, which first he broke into Marvel. That stuff's got tons of little tidbits. And the Omnibus is such a good read. Everything is there. And, there's stuff from page 1 of issue 1 that ties back to the last page. Not Alan Moore Watchmen level of detail, but, there's some fascinating stuff there.
No, I think Hickman's Captain America run. I'm pretty sure he did a Captain America run, didn't he, as well?
No, he did an Avengers run. He did the Avengers run.
Avengers run, yeah.
Do you want me to, yep, there they are. They're right here. two omnibus. He did Avengers and New Avengers after Marvel Now took off in, I think, in 2011 or 12, around then. After Age of Avengers versus X-Men, Hickman took over the Avengers. That led into Secret Wars. And Secret Wars was interesting too, but that's another story.
Because we have quite a lot of stuff we want to cover with yourself, and I know you've got lots of great plans with your work. So what we like to do is probably we usually let you talk a little bit longer about the movie, but let's just jump straight into you, mainly because I think we have a lot to cover. So tell us. Look, Sean has your link. Do you want us to open anything? Look, it's yours to drive.
Go through anything you want there. That's fine. Yeah, that's just some of the stuff that we've prepared over the last year and a half, 2 years. So basically, I'm a New Zealander living in Scotland, shacked up with a South African woman. So that's good. And so I've been here 8 years now. I turned 30, and everyone was getting married and having kids, and I was like, yeah, I'm going. See you later. And next thing you know, I was in Canada for a year, and then ended up over here, and ended up in the south of Scotland. And I was very lucky. So, I just got my mother to ship over about 20 long boxes of comics. Cost a fortune. I said, right, I'm staying here. Send all my stuff. And all my stuff turned up, and she was like, you're really into comics, aren't you? Yeah. And there was Miller World. Mark Miller opened a competition up, and it was for writers and artists. Writers had to produce a 4-page script based on any Miller World character, and artists were to ask to provide, I think, 2 or 3 pages of sequential art. Could be anything, So it wasn't. No one was paid to submit. But it's a blind submission. These talent contests used to happen for years in DC and Marvel, and they don't any longer. So Mark, out of about 2,000 people, my Hit Girl story was selected. So I got published by Image Comics in 2016 in the Miller World Annual, and I am one of a long list of Hit Girl writers. So I can chuck my name in with Kevin Smith and awesome. Jeff Lemire and all that. So I was like, yep. Humble brag. But, so I wrote a 4-page story, and then I was like, well, now what? And lucky enough, in the UK here, the convention scene is really, really strong. and the independent scene is very strong as well. And what I did, I spent about the next year and a half just going around all the conventions. A lot of these conventions are big enough that they have these days, either a day before or a day after the convention, for the writers and artists to come in and sit. It's basically almost like a giant classroom. They have editors from the States and overseas and other companies come in and look and review your work. And it's a really good way to network and just chat and meet people. And next thing you know, I'm chatting with guys like bloody Frank Quietly and Goran Parlov. And, these are guys that actually didn't, the names, you don't know their faces. And next thing you know, I'm sitting next to Ian Church, who was one of my all-time favorite cable artists, and sharing a pint with him. It's like, holy hell. And everyone wants comics to be stronger and succeed. So I sat there and I learned and listened from these guys who are seasoned pros. I sat there and listened to guys who are indie comic pros, and essentially they do make a living off indie comics in the UK, as some of them. And that's, as you know, we don't make comics to make money. It is a bottomless pit sometimes, but we do it because we are creative people and we want to put something out in the world that'll stand the test of time. So I was very lucky to meet all these people and chat and go into the art form and really figure out how to write a decent comic story. And, if all you have to do is ask, and people will give you feedback. It's absolutely brilliant. Even down the road from me, there's a little place called Monty Ive. It's only about 20 minutes from where I am. And it's a small Scottish village of only about 200 people. And they have a comic fair every year. And I'm like, what? And I go down there, and it's run by Alan Grant, who wrote Batman in the 80s. And he lives there. So, I'm sitting there having, and it's running a pub as well. So there's a little comic festival, and Alan Grant invites all his mates up there. So there's all these ex-2000 AD and Judge Dredd artists and all this sort of stuff. It's absolutely brilliant. So, you can talk for hours and have a pint and just get heaps of good feedback. So what I did is I saw a place in the market I was trying to sit there and come up with a story and something I was passionate about. And what I really discovered from my time here is a lot of people don't know their history, and from Australia and New Zealand, we look at the UK a bit and go, well, it's thousands of years old, steeped in history and knowledge and tradition. And it's not. It's people here don't have that knowledge at the top of your head. I was quite shocked to discover I knew a lot of the UK's history better than I did my New Zealand history. And I knew UK history better than most people here. And then I thought about, well, hang on, vice versa. You put that back on me. What is New Zealand's history? What are the stories of our past there? And I didn't. So I spent a bit of time and I went through a whole load of old journals and novels and stuff and had a look at the old Maori and Polynesian myths and legends and stories. And then at the same time, there was an earthquake in New Zealand, as there tends to be. And usually things fall into the sea or they all come crumbling down. And Kaikoura, for example, it shot up 5 meters. The whole bay wharf area went up 5 meters and more landmass had appeared, which doesn't usually happen down that way. And then we discover that for years there's been this continent called Zealandia or Te Rua Maui, which is probably, they call it like the 7th continent in the world, but because it's on such a low sea shelf, it's still kind of prevalent. We can't see it. So I came up with an idea of what if that whole landmass came to, and what kind of world would we live in? Australia might be wiped out from a gigantic tidal wave that came over the ocean. I haven't got there.
Or at least Victoria, mate.
Well, Victoria, yeah. You guys are struggling. My brother's down there as well. You allowed out yet? Can you go for walks or get your shopping, or what's the story?
We can do our shopping at the moment. That's about it. See the doctors and that's about it. But yeah. So I won't sidetrack you. Keep
no, sorry. I'll sidetrack myself. The idea came to me of what this new world would look at and what would happen if the people of this new land formed new tribes, or iwi, as we call them in New Zealand. And there was a lot of regional divisions, and all these regional divisions were based on all this god-like energy that had leaked out of the earth and gifted people of certain sections of New Zealand with different powers. And the overarching crux of the story is, what if you were gifted with the power of the gods? And what if the gods came back and they weren't happy about it? So Auckland, for example, everyone in Auckland is like my mate Helner here. They're all fused with blood red energy and volcanic power and manipulation. Auckland at the moment sits on 1,000. I think it's something like over 100. I think there's still inactive volcanoes. 100 inactive volcanoes. You imagine if something happened and the whole continental plate shifted, that's gone. So add in a bit of godlike power, and those people have the ability to manipulate fire. The people who lived on the beaches on the coastline have the ability to manipulate sand, etc. But there's a lot. It's not as simple as that, this story. And the more I delve into it, I thought, well, what would this land look like? Just plug this land. And and I ended up what I learned through my process of learning how to develop books and stories and stuff through the couple of years that I was, watching and observing and questioning people. You need an answer for everything. I've got 140 folders of everything from what people eat to why they speak with a certain accent or why they are the way they are, to the roads, to the commerce, to everything. And that was really helpful for me to develop before I even started writing the script. I had an overall plot, and I had sort of the hero's journey in mind. So people out there, folks, if you don't know, the hero's journey is basically a form of, it is broken down into about 8 or 9 parts, which is almost every single story has these elements in, or certain elements. Not every story is exactly the same, but they're all different, basically. And you don't have to be a stickler to the story wheel, but it can be helpful in developing your ideas. But what I found was things like, well, in this future New Zealand, how do I see it? And I said, well, the Māori language, te reo Māori, that would be more prevalent in the culture and it'd be more bilingual. And there is a renaissance in New Zealand of bringing back the Māori language a bit more, which is really exciting because I guess when you're away from home, you appreciate it more, and then you appreciate like the richness of the culture and heritage that I didn't actually get growing up, but I can see I don't want to say value, but the uniqueness that makes New Zealand what it is steeped into Māori culture. And I think this land that I created is part of that as well. So I've put elements of bilingual te reo Māori within the conversations and stuff. Because as you grew up, you're reading Tintin and Asterix and books like that. There was Latin in there. I knew Latin words before I was bloody 8 years old because I was reading Asterix books, And it's bonkers if you think about it. And it's the same with Tolkien. I mean, Tolkien wrote a whole Elvis language. And it's like, well, I don't need to...
He was actually a linguist, if you want to go
Correct.
back.
Yeah.
He actually did more than one language. I think there was, don't quote me on it, but I think there was up to like 5-6 different languages, dialects. The man, he went overboard. He went really overboard.
So what I've done is just inserted elements. So it's not banging on the head, every second word is in te reo Māori. No, it's words that are in conversational English that can be mixed in and out. And it's just, there's a little asterisk next to it which explains what it is. At the start of the book, I say, hey, this book has some te reo Māori in. If you'd like to understand the language more, you can go to here and you can type in the words and hear them pronounced as well. So there's an online Māori dictionary. Again, it wasn't to bang the language over anyone's head, but this is to inform and educate. And, if you can learn something and add value to a book or any piece of art, I think that's exciting.
What makes it great.
Yeah. And what's been really fun for me is right now, so SK, you work with Pierre Dedelis for Wordsmith and 12 seconds? Is it 12 seconds?
5.
5 seconds, sorry. Yep. Too many seconds. And
too many seconds.
Too many seconds. And PR was the style. He had this manga-ish style that was exactly what I was looking for. People ask, why haven't I used New Zealand artists to do it? Because at the time I was looking for an artist, there wasn't anyone who could step into my budget and time frame to pick up the book and do that work. But where I have anything designed, anything with Māori motifs or designs have been commissioned and designed by people with ancestry or Māori descendants. So without taking the piss completely, pardon language, I've made sure
after 10 o'clock, mate, it's okay.
Well, there you go. The stuff that I wasn't comfortable with, that I didn't know, I always sought advice and guidance. And a friend of mine I did a Bachelor of Media Arts degree way back in 2000 in New Zealand, and through that was public relations and advertising, but there was graphic design and photo elements and all sorts of stuff in this degree. And a good friend of mine, she went on and she's just recently been helping out with the response for Māori with the COVID-19 in New Zealand. And she's a good mate. I was very lucky to have her as a sounding board and a rock. So she's been very helpful in guiding me through everything. But creating this world and leaving something behind that kids can grow up reading in New Zealand and have, normalize te reo, normalize some of the Māori imagery a bit more. Because growing up, we only had one book, and it was a picture book, and it was pretty basic. But there's huge gap between the ages of 8 to 18. There's not a lot there. So what I've done is issue 1's been published. PR has drawn 125 pages. So we're about 7 pages off completion.
Wow.
And what I did was we went to Glasgow Comic-Con last year, and we presented This Land and another book called Schism, and basically used that, sold it basically at cost, and got it into people's hands as almost a test case to see what people outside of New Zealand would think about it. And we sold out. We're like, what? Couldn't believe it. So then I was lucky enough to get a spot at Kendall Lakes Comic Arts Festival, which is a big international festival in the middle of nowhere in north of England. But for me, it's just down the road about 40 minutes. And it just went really well there as well. And what we found is a lot of young women and kids were really drawn to the vibrancy of Lysel's colours and PR's artwork. And it was good to put it out. I'm lucky I could put it into a sort of a test audience here. Then I discovered, I sent a few copies home with a friend who was over here for a while, and he dropped them off to my mother. And next thing you know, she's handing them out to bloody schools. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then I'm starting getting emails from schools saying, oh, well, we'd like to incorporate this into our reading programs. I'm like, what? I've only got one issue. So it's been very exciting, and that the material itself, I mean, in a nutshell, it's Moana meets the X-Men, or Moana meets Avatar. So
just on the schools part, and I just want to touch base with you on that. Look, with schools, it's actually a really interesting market. So you've got to basically all the big stuff: no swearing, no nudity, no themes like you can't have rape or any of those themes that's involved. It has to be kept. But if you just remove all those elements from it, man, the kids actually want a complex story. I've done school workshops before, and they want I'll give you an example. Like one of my first books, Tabby, was just basically a rewrite of Romeo and Juliet with cats. But because it's Romeo and Juliet, look, all the characters survive to the end. It wasn't like the Shakespearean tragedy where everybody dies. So, but it had a sad ending, and you would not believe the positive comments I got back, because in the end, the two starstruck kittens, who were in love, had to split up. But the feedback I got back was that was absolutely perfect, because the teachers could then have a way to talk to students about, and this is mainly primary school, they could talk to students about, hey, look, in your life as a kid, you will have people who are important to you move away. Your best friend might leave. You've got to have a chance sometimes with your grandparents, touch wood, they may not be long for the earth type thing. And it opened up that whole discussion that people who are important to you, or people you find who you love and you want to be around forever, aren't going to be. And guess what? There's so many books out there which don't deal with that. It has a happy ending.
Never ever talk down to kids. Kids
100%.
are a lot smarter than people give them credit for. And I guess in this day and age, even if there's a word there they don't know, they can find out what that is like that. They've all got bloody phones. There's an interesting concept I use, because the gods return, and they are tulpas. And a tulpa is a form of... A tulpa is a form which is a projection of someone else's body and spirit. So this is a way for me to be respectful as well, and say I'm not using the true Tane, god of the forest. I'm using his tulpa. So this is his emissary coming to this land to sort some stuff out. But I don't go into it what a tulpa is exactly. I talk around it. But from feedback, kids just went and Googled it, and then, all right, I get that. So you can give them things to search for and grow and learn, and that's not the crux of the story. This is not an educational, shove it down your throat. This is still a story of action and adventure and a hero's journey, basically. And a ragtag group of people. And just going back, SK, there is no... I know you didn't infer it, but there's no rape or anything in my book or any bad words. So.
Oh, no. What I was trying to get to the point about that is, look, there are certain things, if you're pushing to schools, you can't talk about.
Yeah.
It's just off the table. It is certain topics, I have to say, would be too distressing, like swearing, gore. That's why we have R18 films. You know what I mean? But I really like what you were saying is that except for certain elements, which we both agree, I think all of us are in consensus of that, you shouldn't talk to kids about. In terms of the storytelling, there should be no talking down to story. Have the characters get sad, have them screw up, have them stuff up, have them go into, have them have times where they are depressed and all the rest of it. Because I think too many kids' books out there now, half the kids just have, like the Famous Five or those or any Blyton books. They're good adventure story, but man, it's all lemonade and cucumber sandwiches.
Yeah.
And oh wow, we just happened to catch the smuggler bad guy, with the Scooby-Doo type things.
This frustrates me about cartoons as well, because growing up, the thing I always loved about like He-Man and those type of things is, at the end of it, he always talked about what the moral of the story was. Well, what did we learn today? Skeletor lied, and what happened? His plan became undone because, he lied or whatever. There was always a reason behind it. I get so frustrated with these, like, Digimon and Pokemon and stuff like that. And yes, there's a bit of...
those are commercials. Those are commercials. And to be fair to He-Man and G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle. And I think Transformers might have had a little bit of that at some stage. That was originally it was a get around for the broadcasters to say, well, we know it's an ad in the commercial, but we're teaching them good things. But as you say, there is value in that. And I think there's a lot of new Netflix programs in this day and age with binge watching and stuff. There's some really strong themes that come through for kids, and there's some cartoons out there right now that are quite, I wouldn't say completely traumatic, but there's a lot of stuff goes down, and it resonates. Those programs like Avatar: The Last Airbender, the original series, and even I think most latest one, which is actually quite interesting, is Kippo and the Age of the Wonder Beasts. That's on Netflix as well. They've got some whilst there's fun and adventure and excitement, there's some hard-hitting truths in those stories, and it's good to see that more pieces of art are, reflecting on the real world and such.
No, I
I
love
watched
it.
that
I
Onward
absolutely love
with my little girl, and that was quite interesting about having lost a father, never knowing your father, and then like giving up your opportunity. Again, spoilers if you haven't seen it. Giving up that opportunity to see him, so that your brother, who's done everything for you and has really been that father figure for you, that you kind of didn't realize it was just annoying and always there and everything like that. I was like, those aspects are, I can kind of grasp and understand as an adult, but it's great to plant those seeds at an early age and get these kids being empathetic, sympathetic, and trying to see things from all different angles. Because as you said, they're not dumb. They're quite smart. They're able to research. They're able to comprehend a lot more than people will be like, oh, let kids be kids. But in this digital world, like, they can, as you said, jump on at any time and like see like loads of worse things than some of the themes in these shows. So
like I think I saw T2 when I was 12, and that was only because I was away on a school exchange, sports exchange, and T2 was an R18 film, and I was 12 years old. And my mother had always been very, if you're not old enough, you can't watch it unless you sit there and watch a program with me or something like that. And I didn't even see Jaws till I was like 13. It was ridiculous. But there's kids these days have access to everything, no matter how good your safe, no matter how good your parental locks are. They're going to find a way through it, and then it's up to parents to have the information to explain and educate what they might have seen, or why you shouldn't have watched that or clicked on that button.
Now, do you want me to show your video? I've got your video
please do.
Ready to.
So this is so what? Yep. Oh, that's it's a GIF. So that's the cover for issue 2. You can play that if you want.
Let's have a look at this first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just a live GIF.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's interesting. One thing I really learned is try and be as professional as you can. And what we're really lucky with as independent creators is actually we can there's a lot of free technology out there, and you can animate and generate content. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just play through it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Play that one.
Yeah. So we can probably mute that actually.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's interesting how accessible this sort of stuff is to be able to develop and do, and it doesn't cost anything. The only thing it costs is time. And when you've with me, with only one book being out, I'm constantly generating content showing how the book's developing, how things are looking, and putting things out there, media out there, and getting people involved and excited about it. You might want to go on to the next one. Is Schism, I think it'll be in there somewhere. Schism's a story that I did with a Scottish artist. Yeah, that'll do. That one. Yep. And that is basically we call it. It's sort of Akira meets. It's been that long since I've done the plug. You should always have your elevator plug on the go. That's the Goran. So Goran Parlov did us a cover for issue 1. Which is fantastic. So we didn't get it in time. So next year, COVID and all that, that will be the cover for issue 2. This is a black and white version because I put this out before the colors were added. And the first edition of this went out as a black and white book. And it was a little bit of gore there. Yeah. But it's in black and white, so you don't notice it. So that is this is your post-apocalyptic Memento meets Akira meets Ghost in the Shell. That was the pitch for this one. So yeah, we're really looking forward to issue 2 of that, which we're going to kickstart at the end of next year. Chris was all ready to go this year, and then unfortunately COVID hit, and he had a baby girl as well. So it's going to give him more time to get that done. Because as you know, a lot of people, comics isn't, some comic artists, it isn't a full-time gig. They can only generate maybe a page a week or a page every 2 weeks. So we're kind of lucky that we've pushed that back an extra year. So we'll have a Goro and Parlov cover and 54 pages color story, which is I would say batshit crazy. It is, but it's all action from go to woe. And Chris is a good mate, and he basically, we got to chatting and decided to do a story that would showcase his talents. And it's really good if you're working with a friend or working with someone, especially if they haven't had too much published. What you want to do is try and give them the ability to express themselves and show what they can do. So it is a really, really cool story, and a mixture of it's almost like the hallway scene in Daredevil and Old Boy, but the whole book's a hallway scene, basically.
Oh, nice.
So this is my website, Aroha Comics, and here's World Breaker. So what I did with World Breaker was interesting because PR drew this, and essentially it was my trial pages. I gave him a short script. There's hardly any words in here. It's free to read on my website. It's basically was when you're hiring someone to do work for you and you don't know them, you give them a deadline. You give them a script, and you can see what you do. And this is what I gave a number of artists in PR, and I paid every single artist as well. Even the guys who didn't end up working for me. And basically, it's an introduction to the world of Aroha Comics, this little 5-pager. But it was, I thought, the work's too good not to share. And it's almost like an ashcan, a digital ashcan showing PR's work, how the world came into being and what the story's about. So, yeah.
I love that idea, because I think a lot of people, and I've heard this feedback a lot. A lot of people go in and expect to be able to work with someone that they've never worked before, and it all to go smoothly, and them to hit the deadlines that they set, and not to have any trouble, and not to have any feedback. That is just unrealistic, type of thing, and it's very, very rare that you have.
Life gets in the way. And it's the same for Marvel and DC. How long it took? Like 2 years or 3 years for Watchmen to come out. People forget that the original run, and the last run, Doomsday Clock, took 2.5 years. But
but it's always good if you and what I was going to say was that it's a relationship. So relationships are something that you need to work on all the time, that you need to improve, and you need to communicate with. So, when you're working on something that's 140 pages long, there is going to be a lot of toing and froing. There's going to be a lot of communication. There's going to be a lot of edits and all those type of things. And it's going to take a lot of time. And, a lot of people don't realize that, yes, a 20-page comic might take 3 or 4 months for someone to do, or a month in some cases if people are quite quick in that. But if you're going to tell a story, this can be something, or a relationship that goes over years and goes over several years type of thing. So you need to make sure that you're comfortable with that person, that if they do have things come up, like you said, life gets in the way, that is communicated, and then you can adjust those deadlines. So I like the idea of writing a short story, testing them out. I'm a firm believer that you should always pay people for the work that they do. So that's great to hear that you do that as well. And then see what one, what the work is like, and two, what that relationship, what is that toing froing in that short amount of time actually looks like, and how that works.
So I'll tell you, my original concept for this land was to be an anthology, was to actually do 4-page, 5-page stories, get a whole lot of different artists together and tell these stories of this land. And after seeing PR's work, I just something clicked in me, and I was like, "No, I'm just gonna absolutely go hell for leather and do the grander story," because for me it made a lot of sense. But if you're a first-time writer or artist, the best thing you can do is, and this has been told to me from everyone over the last couple of years, any industry pro, do short stories, do them well, and try and get into anthologies. And if you can, make your own anthology. If you're an artist, do a small book. It can be in black and white. It can just be digital. You don't even have to have a print run, and put it online. Lots of small short stories, different styles. Here's fantasy. Here's a slice of life. Here's space future. Here's an action scene. You can. But if the storytelling's there as well, it's not just about drawing cool shit, basically. You need a solid storytelling base behind it. But it's the best way to present yourself and your work is to probably make a small anthology or something like that.
Yep.
And find willing partners to work with. And because if it's only it's people do need to earn a living wage, and it's bloody tough, because it is, unless you kill it on Kickstarter in the early days, it's hard. I've been saving my butt off for those couple of years to get a position where I can almost get over the finishing line. And it is important that everyone is respected and their time they spend is valued. Now, whether that be as a writer, honestly, you can't really expect any pay straight up unless you're looking at covering your costs of printing and bits and pieces or whatnot. For me, if I was to ever make a profit, it would just go straight back into the next thing, till hopefully one day you reach the holy grail and people come knocking at you, your door. Yeah, the dream. Yeah, hey, look, Tom Taylor's done it. So you guys there are always pathways there, and it isn't just who you know as well. I've been lucky to meet some cool people who have helped me out, but at the end of the day, I think the best thing you can do is learn as much as possible, give everyone the respect and value they deserve to you work with, and don't be a dick. Don't be a dick, because there are times where you want to vent or say something on social media, and rightfully there are times where you there's a time and a place to say certain things. But the internet's kind of forever these days.
Yep.
So you've got to stop and think about what you're saying, and basically, anything you say will reflect on you and the people around you as well. So before you go and say something about something, think about how that will affect your collaborators. It's important just to not be a dick.
Love it.
And the funny thing about it is, it's actually not that hard. It's like, just go, you know what? Take the high road, and it's seriously not that hard. Oh, look, we've probably got about a minute to go.
Sorry.
So and that's one of the reasons we cut the movie segment a lot shorter, because I knew there's a lot we wanted to get through. Look, I'm just going to plug your website. It's in the link, Aroha Comics. I've plugged the link to your World Breaker, the free thing as well. If you guys are interested, do pick up a copy. When your Kickstarter or any crowdfunding comes up, we'll definitely share the links across. And yeah, look, thank you very, very much for having us on. So I'm done. Sean, Mark, anything else?
Well, I just want to. I'll let you, Mark. You can say your little piece, and then I'll finish off. But
I've got digital copies available on my website of the first issue of This Land and Schism. But if anyone wants to ping me an email in the next hour at info@arohacomics.com, I'll just send you a PDF for free.
Oh, Thank you very much, man. We always like our little free giveaways, and that's a reason why to come on and watch us live, because we get this type of stuff. So, but I just want to do a couple of shout outs for people that have come on and do come on each week. So Darren Close, thank you very much. Moira, who's always on. Brad, good to see you have come on, mate. Lucas, who was our guest last week. We've also had Kieran from the Halftone Effect and Sassy Gal, Comics. So a few of our regulars have come on. But I did want to make one announcement before we shoot off. I did do a live stream on Thursday night to announce this, but wanted to do it on here for our regular viewers, just in case they haven't heard. But XCT is going to do their very first crossover, and it is with Lightmare Studios, which is a video game company from Brisbane in Australia. So it is going to be a crossover between XCT and Infinity Heroes, which is their video game. So we're super excited about this. We and I will chuck up a link to the site, which is here at the moment. So you can jump on here, click notify to be notified at launch. I'll chuck this link in our comments as well. So super excited about this, and we're also going to have XCT characters in the Infinity game as well. So part of this crossover will be a combination of the comic, XCT in the game, and then the final thing is it's going to have fan interaction to adjust or change the direction of the story. So at the end of each issue, there will be a choice which will be put to the fans and the readers. We are working out how we're collecting that information. When we get to a certain amount, that will then direct the next issue of the comic. So, I'm a big fan of that. What If and Marvel versus DC, where they had all the different characters fight off against each other, and you could ring in and decide who was going to win. But I don't think anything like this has been done in Australia before, so I'm very, very excited about this. And if you could share the link with all your friends and family, if you can click notify for when we go live, that would be awesome. As we always say, we do it for the love, not the money, but the money does get the things made. So any support that you can provide, we are always super grateful. So I will chuck that up in the links. Thank you again, Mark, for taking the time to talk to us. Thank you, Stephen. As always, you're an amazing co-host, even though we can't see you. If you're wondering what Stephen's little diagram or artwork is he's actually got another graphic novel that's coming out as well called Transhuman, but I'm sure he'll talk about that in the upcoming show. So thank you again, guys. It was a great show. It's always great to have a passionate creator on, so we look forward to seeing more of your series, and I'll jump on and have a sticky nose at the PDF myself.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Have a good night.